The other day, I decided to spend the afternoon replaying Donkey Kong for the OG GameBoy, often referred to as DK94 due to being released in, well, 1994, being the first time I've revisited it ever since I initially played it way back on the 3DS Virtual Console over a decade ago. I found myself so hooked that I beat the whole thing in one sitting. So, what is it about DK94 that makes it one of my personal favourites from the original Game Boy, and quite possibly an overlooked entry in the conversation for one of the best Donkey Kong games in general? Let's find out. On the surface, Donkey Kong 94 initially appears to be a straight-up remake of the 1981 arcade original that introduced Mario, DK and Pauline to the gaming landscape, recreating that game's 4 stages to be played on a handheld console. But think again. Once you clear the familiar construction site, the game expands into an additional 97 completely new levels with different themes ranging from the big city, a pirate ship, jungle, glacier, and so on. Introducing new mechanics and becoming more of a puzzle platformer, the main objective being to find an oversized key and get it to the door to progress onwards. Every few levels leads to an encounter with Donkey Kong himself, where beating the level either requires you to reach the top like before, or it comes in the form of a full-on boss fight that sees you picking up barrels that DK loves to throw at you and giving him a taste of his own medicine. He even occasionally brings his son Donkey Kong Jr. to help out and become more of a hindrance, usually by pulling levers at the most inconvenient of times. Oh, come on, seriously? It's nice to see that DK94 has borrowed elements and mechanics from what has come out since the arcade original, even expanding this by taking inspiration from main series Mario titles like Super Mario Bros. 2, where you can pick up enemies and objects from above, as well as throwing objects upwards, much like in Super Mario World. Mario himself is also a lot more acrobatic this time round, and DK94 was actually the first instance of his backflip somersault 2 whole years before Super Mario 64 made it cool. Mario is also able to handstand, which helps shield him from objects falling down from above, which he can then transition into a flip that crosses great distances, and even an extra jump upon landing that closely resembles his beloved triple jump, which has become a staple in the 3D adventures since. One of my favourite things about DK94 has to be the way it teaches you these new mechanics you're about to play around with, and this is through the cutscenes that play after each DK stage, which shows a little animation of Mario encountering an obstacle and then overcoming it to catch up with DK, which is a fun, subtle way of visually indicating to the player to do the same in the forthcoming puzzles while simultaneously driving the plot forward. No need for excessive tutorials that disrupt the flow of gameplay. Oh, I'm looking at you, Mario and Luigi, despite how much I love you as a series. Some of the puzzles I particularly struggled with are the ones with invisible doors, because if you weren't paying attention to where the big speech bubble of Pauline screaming for help was, you'll be running around in circles wondering where to go. Additionally, the airplane was probably my least favourite world because it introduced the dreaded wind physics that I had to keep watching out for, especially when on tight platforms where I'm waiting to make my next jump, as it was rather easy to forget to keep moving ever so slightly to avoid falling to my doom, although this is probably just a skill issue on my part rather than a fault of the game itself. Eventually, Mario's pursuit of Donkey Kong leads to a tower with the latter's face carved at the top. Seems a bit egotistical and an architectural nightmare to accomplish if you ask me. Just when it seems like Pauline is safe and sound, DK consumes a super mushroom and turns into a hulking giant. Why can't they ever make Mario this big? And this was way before Mega Mushrooms were established to be a thing in New Super Mario Bros. Before anyone tries to comment. This final encounter is yet another example of a Nintendo boss with giant hands and a head, where the hands themselves can be used as platforms to reach barrels that you chuck in DK's face, and once this is done, the game is over for real, with a cute little continuity nod depicting the question blocks in a pipe that leads into Super Mario Bros., just to remind us that the Donkey Kong series was where Mario got his start. Honestly, I've had such a really good time revisiting DK94, and feel it deserves to be talked about much more. Whether the timing of its release got overshadowed due to releasing just 1 year before Donkey Kong Country blew everyone away with its revolutionary visuals and generally just being a fantastic game that has also aged really well in the time since, or even more recent entries like Tropical Freeze and Bonanza dominating the conversation as contenders for some of the best DK games around, I still think it's important to remember how influential DK94 actually was. From expanding on Mario's moveset, to also setting the foundation for the recurring Mario vs Donkey Kong series that succeeded it. DK94 is still worth going back to over 3 decades later, and I strongly urge anyone who hasn't played it to give it a go, or if you already have, go back and experience a deceptively important part of the series' history. Its most accessible state right now is probably through the Game Boy selection on Nintendo Switch Online, so if you already have a subscription to the base membership, by all means go for it, and be sure to let me know in the comments what you think. Anyway, that just about does it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you like what you've seen, be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to the Peter Gargan channel for more coverage on all sorts of gaming topics of interest. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you here for more.